Welcome to the Growth Shift. I'm David Zylstra. Here's what I've learned after years in business. Every leader who's built something meaningful has a story, but the moment they had to shift, when failure forced innovation, when change became opportunity, when they chose growth over comfort. On this show, we dive into those pivotal moments, the setbacks that became breakthroughs, the strategic shifts that accelerated growth, and the frameworks that turn obstacles into opportunities. Because here's the truth. In a world where change is the only constant, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who've learned to shift strategically through it. So whether you're facing your own pivot point or just want to learn from someone who's been there, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. This episode is brought to you by Valentix. At Valentix, we help coaches and consultants who are struggling with generating consistent, high-quality leads, automating their client onboarding processes, and scaling their operations without simply adding more hours or headcount. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because they're bogged down in manual tasks and feel like they're missing out on the power of modern technology. But with the right strategy and AI-powered solutions, they're able to streamline their workflows, attract better opportunities, and achieve sustainable growth. If that sounds like you or someone you know, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're incredibly honored to host Tracy Hooper, an author and the visionary founder of the Confidence Project. Tracy's career is a masterclass in communication, evolving from a distinguished TV news reporter, anchor, and producer to a sought-after expert who advises executives and professionals at companies like Nike, Intel, and Microsoft. At 58, Tracy embarked on a profound career pivot, launching the Confidence Project to address a critical need, helping people master the art of confident, face-to-face communication in an increasingly digital world. Her unique ability to teach confidence as a learnable skill, fostering greater trust, influence, and impact, offers invaluable guidance for anyone looking to present themselves as a category of one. Tracy, welcome to The Growth Shift.
Thank you, David. Lovely introduction. I appreciate that.
I've said it before to previous guests, but you've done all the work. I'm just here to share a little bit about it. I'm taking no credit. Now, Tracy, your professional journey spanning from a distinguished career in TV and news to founding the Confidence Project showcases a deep understanding of human communication. What are the key insights or experiences from your early career that illuminated the critical need for the communication skills you now teach?
Well, it's twofold. Number one, I grew up in a family where my mother was the original, the OG talk show host. I'm one of 6 children, and every night at the dinner table, my mother would get the show started. She would say, Libby, tell me about play practice, and Tommy, you looked great on the wrestling mat. Tell me how it went today. And Meg, I know you have a science experiment this week. And simply by talking to each other and learning how to listen and speaking up when we got interrupted and being curious with each other and learning how to listen, we all learned the art of confident conversation. And I think that's lost in a lot of our world today because people don't always have dinner together. And even friends who are together for a meal spend, I notice, a lot of time on their cell phones, as if there's someone more important digitally than the person right in front of them. So that was the early part of that. My father was a sportscaster in Baltimore, Maryland. So I learned a lot about interviewing and being curious about people from him as well. Fast forward to my TV news days. You know, David, typically people on the street are not interested in talking to a news crew. So you really needed to make connections with people fast. I would, approach them, introduce myself, extend my hand to shake their hand. And simply by making contact with people using eye contact, it made people feel as if they wanted to talk with me. So I learned how to make connections with people fast. And that's a skill that anybody can learn. I happened to learn it early on and through my career. But I always say that confidence is a verb. We learn how to be confident by taking action steps, making mistakes, adjusting and refining, and then repeating them. And that's really how my career got started, being curious and learning how to make connections fast.
Now, you and I have almost a similar starting point. I'm one of six as well, but it was a little more chaotic at our dinner tables. There was lots of speaking up when there were interruptions, but perhaps not the same approach to learning communication from such a young age. But that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Tracy, after such a successful career, in the broadcasting and news industry, why did you decide to make a change and shift out of that?
Oh, I was thinking about this. Oh, for many women, our lives are not linear. I had a TV news career, and then my husband and I started having a family. We have three daughters, and I was I worked part-time when the girls were young, and then we moved to the Pacific Northwest in 2001, and we didn't know anybody. My sole focus was getting our girls really settled and comfortable living where we are. And I did a lot of volunteer work at their schools, a lot of fundraising, a lot of really being involved in their lives and keeping my finger in, not in the news business, but certainly in the voiceover business. For years after I left TV news, I continued to produce and host and narrate corporate videos. And then when we moved here, I just continued my voiceover work. So you could probably hear me saying, "Thank you for calling iHealth Northwest. If this is a medical emergency, please hang up and press 911." I did that for a while after we moved here. And then after the girls got settled, and actually Margaret and Eleanor went to college, I noticed that the way people were communicating with each other had changed dramatically. And I thought, people aren't really having conversations. So I had some friends who had started a women's leadership program in Portland. And they had interviewed women from all over the country who just graduated from college. They selected 6 women. They lived together in community. They had paid internships. And then they did volunteer work on Fridays. And during the week, they had professional development. So my friend said to me, "Tracy, would you be willing to host an etiquette evening for these women?" And I said, "Absolutely. Anything to promote civility. Yes, let's do it." And so these young women came over to the house. And remember, they were smart. They had just graduated from college. They had some skills. And I thought I would just talk about, how do you introduce yourself? How do you introduce someone else? How do you start a conversation with someone you don't know? How do you welcome someone into a conversation if you can't remember their name? And of course, how do you get out? How do you exit out of a conversation? And in a very short period of time, it was clear to me that these young women didn't really have those skills. So I said to them, "Would you all like to have a workshop where you can bring your friends and we can practice these skills for connection?" That would be great. 1 month later, David, I had 30 young people in our living room. And I looked around and I said, "Does anybody know why you're here tonight?" And somebody raised their hand and said, "I heard this is a crash course in becoming a grown-up." And I thought, "Oh, there's a business here." So it started with young professional women. And then I thought, well, men need these skills too. And it was really around etiquette in the beginning. But it's really morphed into, as you mentioned, clients like Nike and Intel and MTV and eBay and other companies around the world. And it's really about confident communications. What are the words that we need to lose that make us sound hesitant and uncertain? How can we replace those with words to use that have influence? And how can we connect with people in a genuine way to make them feel as if they are the most important person in the room? And that's how you build relationships. That's how the Confidence Project started 12 years ago already.
Incredible. Now, you made a significant life and career pivot at 58. Many people at that stage might shy away from such a bold entrepreneurial leap. In those initial stages, I mean, it seemed like you had a proven concept, right? There was a lot of interest, there was a lot of need, and there was a lot of value you could provide. But beyond that, what were maybe some of those first initial challenges that you faced and the most impactful lessons you learned through that process?
Yeah. Number one, I had to learn my lane. I had to learn what skills. I didn't really want to stick to etiquette. I thought you can read Emily Post or any number of books and subject on that subject. But I really wanted to focus in on how people could communicate better with each other. And a lot of it was experimentation. My children's friends were of an age where they were interested and they'd come over and I would experiment with them. I would offer coaching sessions to people. And what I didn't know about marketing and finance and accounting and strategic planning, I didn't know that about business, but I knew about the human condition. I know what makes people feel valued, what makes them light up, what makes them want to talk with you, listen to you, recommend you, hire you. And that's really became my secret sauce. But I would say in the beginning, so much of it was, how do you build a business? How do you sell yourself when you've never sold yourself before, when you've never sold your services before? How do I differentiate myself from other people? I would say the TV news background helped a lot, both in terms of my experience and what I could offer, but also it provided cachet. Somebody may work over the years at IBM or Microsoft or NVIDIA, and even if they don't work there very long, they have that cachet of having worked for a company with that kind of professional status. And the TV news thing was very appealing to people. And then I got a business coach early on. It's interesting because I couldn't afford a business coach. I wasn't making any money really, but I was able to work out something with the first person, and she helped me a lot. And that was 2 years. And then I met another business coach and started working with that person who really helped me to hone my storytelling skills. Even though I'm a newswoman, I needed some skills to really, I would say, clarify a good story. And then now the business coach I've had for almost 6 years has been a game changer for me. And the first, if I could offer this, the first question he asked me, not the first, but up there, are you paying yourself? And I said, no, I'm paying my associate, I'm paying my accountant, I'm paying my lawyer occasionally because I'm trademarked, the Confidence Project is trademarked. And I was paying everybody else but myself. He said, no, you've got to pay yourself. And that changed everything for me. I felt like now I really have a business. I'm making an income. And it has gotten more over the years, but that was really important. That was a mistake I made for 5 years. I didn't pay myself. I broke even and was happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a really difficult, challenging, and common situation a lot of new business owners find themselves in, right? Paying everyone else first, but you really need to focus on that profit first, right? Giving yourself something so you can at least reap some sort of reward, even if it's a small amount, right? Because you'll
Yep.
figure the other things out. You don't want your costs to be higher than your revenue and all of this at the end of the day. So I love that. I love that approach. Paying yourself first ultimately really drives innovation and almost pushes you to figure things out in a better way as well. So, Tracy, the Confidence Project, now you focus on teaching confidence as a learnable skill, right, to a wide range of clients, CEOs, frontline managers, and beyond. Can you elaborate on your core methodology and how you equip individuals and teams with the practical skills needed to improve face-to-face communication? Now, what has it evolved into today?
Yeah. Well, it's twofold. A lot of it is teaching people how to connect with someone right away. For instance, I was working with someone yesterday who's in wealth management, a very successful financial planner, who's very uncomfortable with networking. Now, how do you grow your business? You've got to get out there and network. Industry conferences, business meetings that they might have associated with some organization or another. And he said, I don't really know where to begin. I mean, I've done fine. He had a partner for a long time and who did most of the rainmaking. And so we talked about starting a conversation with someone. First of all, when you go to a networking event, make a decision about who you'd like to meet when you're there. Sometimes you'll get the guest list, the participants. I would look at those people, go on LinkedIn, find out who you'd like to meet, and pick 2 or 3 people who you'd like to meet in the course of those 2 hours. It's not creepy. People are on LinkedIn because they want to be discovered. They want people to know that they've just won an award or they've just written a book or have gotten promoted. So look people up and then look for those people at that event. And then my recommendation is to approach somebody and say, David, we don't know each other. I'm Tracy Hooper. Congratulations on your podcast. I hear it's doing very well. Now that person feels significant. They feel as if they are the most important person in the room. I always encourage people to begin with a compliment if you can. Now, there's a caveat there. I have a very good friend who had a long career at Time Warner, including 15 years at HBO. And he said to me, I never compliment people on what they look like or what they wear. Yeah, I would never say, cool haircut. I love your glasses. That's a great sweater. He said, I only compliment people on an accomplishment or a trait.
Much more
I
personal.
really appreciate, yes, because it could be misconstrued. It is too personal. You don't know them well or at all. But to say, I admire how strategic you are. I heard you present at that panel discussion. And I really like the way you were able to answer that question with clarity. Now you are talking about an accomplishment that they had or a trait. I appreciate how strategic you are. I appreciate, I noticed in our meeting, we haven't met before, but I noticed in the group meeting at the all hands that you were very inclusive and you brought a lot of people into the conversation. That's one of the skills that I teach people because I believe that in almost every industry, you need to be able to meet other people, whether it's a potential client, whether it could be a strategic partner internally or externally. You need to be able to do that. And when you make people feel important, they'll remember you. That's the first skill. I'm a big handshake girl. I believe you need to extend your hand and shake hands with someone. I believe in looking people in the eye. It sounds fundamental and elementary. Why is she telling people to look people in the eye? But so many people today are so used to making eye contact with their phones and not with human beings that that's a skill they need to learn. And here's a trick. If it's tricky for you to look someone in the eye, look at the bridge of their nose. It's a great fake. It's in the neighborhood, it's close enough, and that will connect you with that other person. So the handshake, and I also believe in using your first and last name. I believe that our name is a part of our personal and professional identity. And there are a lot of Tracys in the world. There are a lot of Davids in the world, but there's only one of each of us with your own fingerprint and your eye color and your own name. I encourage that. As you can tell, I'm passionate about this.
Oh, absolutely. I love this approach too. As you said, it's a fundamental and almost seemingly, elementary approach, but it's really provides a deeper level of connection, right? Looking someone in the eyes, getting a sense for where they're at right now, maybe how they're feeling, connecting with them physically, shaking their hand, and compliments to open a conversation based on something deeper than just surface level that everyone can see, showing that you've actually thought about this person, you care about them as well, or at least are interested in recognizing them as a human being. Now, you've worked with an impressive roster of clients, including major corporations like Nike and Intel. Could you share a specific story about an executive or team you coached where your methods led to a remarkable transformation in their communication skills, resulting in a tangible business impact or growth?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, not from those companies, but I do have a
Mm.
client he's a consultant and he does healthcare consulting. And when we first started working together, he said, I don't really know how to follow up with people. I'll meet with someone at a conference, and then I don't really know the best way to get back in their radar. And I want some skills around presenting it for finalist meetings because I believe that most every professional or someone who aspires to be truly professional needs to be able to present publicly, whether it's one-on-one or one-to-many. Those are the skills we worked on. How do you follow up with people when they've met 50 people at one conference, and then how do you present? One really cool part of our work together is that he has an amazing origin story, and that is that he learned to start saving from his grandfather, who, when he was 8 years old, gave him a passbook savings account. And every time he would cut somebody's lawn, he would put half the money in his passbook savings account, and he had a list. And he said, I can remember sitting on my grandfather's knee and my grandfather telling me how important it was to save. And that's what got me interested in helping other people to save for retirement, because that's part of what he does. He does healthcare and then also um, financial advising.
Mm.
And I would say the biggest change for him is that he began to use words that have impact. And for instance, instead of saying, do you know what I mean? After giving a presentation, or does that make sense? Which are validators. We want to make sure people are following along. He learned to say, do you have any questions? Could I explain that to you in a different way? Is there anything I could clarify? Which sounds so much stronger than saying, does that make sense? Or am I being clear? He really learned to change his language around. He got rid of all the uhs and ums. The uhs and ums will kill us because people will then, if we have so many filler words, like, that's all people can focus on after a while if you use them enough. In fact, I just got a text from my favorite client at Nike, and he has a clicker. He has a clicker, David, and when his team is preparing for a presentation, he will click every time they use a filler, particularly and like all of them. And he said he calls it an epidemic, and it's right. He's right. We miss the subject because we're so focused on that weak, sloppy language. I would say between those two, being a better storyteller for my client and also getting rid of those filler words and stop using those validators to make sure we don't need validation all the time. Just say what you're going to say and then say, do you have any questions?
That's very powerful, right? Especially removing these small filler words that can really detract from the value of what it is that one is trying to communicate.
Yes.
So, Tracy, your work at the Confidence Project addresses a fundamental human need for effective communication, especially important in today's increasingly digital world. As you mentioned, a lot of people are busy staring at their phones instead of making eye
Yeah.
contact. A lot of coaches and consultants out there are struggling with some pretty fundamental challenges right now with this digital world, right? The noise that's being created, market saturation, however it is that you want to look at it, but a lot of it comes down to building trust and standing out. Given your expertise in communications and helping people stand out, what are your thoughts around these challenges? And what do you observe in the market today for coaches who are trying to gain more exposure, effectively communicate, and stand out to attract the right type of opportunities for themselves?
Well, number one, I would remind you all that relationships don't happen overnight. When you plant a seed, and that's one of the skills my business coach has taught me, is to plant a seed every day. He calls it a storm starter. Every day. He plants 3 seeds, I plant 1. And that could be an email, it could be a text, it could be a phone call where you're speaking in person, you get the person live, or you leave a voicemail for them. Somehow connect with someone every single day. And what I have learned is that people don't trust us right away. I don't trust people right away. It takes time to build relationships. I think about planting a seed. And if you are a consultant or a coach, know that you need to be gentle with yourself and persistent. I don't feel like I'm bugging people. I always want to be in touch with them for a reason. For instance, with my client at Nike, we talk to each other once a quarter, sometimes more often. And I am known to send him articles in the mail. There was a great article in our local paper, the Oregonian, about the new CEO at Nike. He's been there for a year. He was an OG guy, one of the early players at Nike, and then went into retirement and then came out of retirement to run the company, and he's doing great. And it was a really super article. And so I clipped it out of the newspaper, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and a note inside. I thought about you when I read this today. Boom. That way I am staying in touch, but I'm not being a pest. So whenever you can think about a way to, I love to send emails to people with the subject line, thought about you when I read this, thought about you when I watched this. And then in the body of the email, Dear David, I thought about you when I saw this podcast, or I thought when I heard this podcast. I thought about you when I watched this TED Talk. I hope you're doing well. I call it the give, ask approach. I give, and then you can ask for someone if they would refer someone to you. And I find that way people feel as if I'm being generous, I'm not being demanding, and they also get to know what I'm reading, what I value, what I'm focusing on.
Yeah, no, I love this approach of planting seeds. It's extremely powerful, right? Building relationships, building trust in a market where you're trying to stand out. This sounds like it's going to be something extremely powerful for business owners, perhaps even in the further stages of after that initial contact. How can you bridge the gap? How can you draw someone in further? And in addition to that, I'm curious, are there any insights or actionable strategies that you're prioritizing right now with the Confidence Project that our audience might be able to look to for inspiration when it comes to the initial stages of, being noticed in the first place, getting that first hello and that handshake?
Well, I'm not much on social media because I find it to be a rabbit hole. I just, but I do believe that LinkedIn is my place. I'm not
Mm.
on any other, well, I'm a little on Instagram, but I don't post very much. But LinkedIn is for professionals. And what I have found is that I try to post when I have something valuable to say, and I respond to other people's posts. So I think the more you can be on LinkedIn, let people see what you're up to, then the more likely they are to take your phone call or answer an email if you send it to them. That would be one recommendation. The other piece that I have really embraced, and we may get into this, David, is AI. And This is how I use it. I know my content very well, and I am an expert in my field. However, sometimes I'll need a title. If I have a monthly video that is complimentary, and I write the copy, and if I need to make it shorter, I'll put it into AI and say, tighten this up for me, or give me a good title. And I don't feel like I'm cheating. I feel like I'm being efficient and I'm keeping people's attention. I like my videos to be under 3 minutes, and sometimes all my copy makes it 4 minutes, and I don't want it to be 4 minutes long because people are not that interested. So I have used that for all kinds of, here's another example of how I use it. I got a call from a good client of mine, and they wanted me to come talk to the leadership team about difficult conversations. Okay, great. I know that. I had 90 minutes for my presentation. And so I put into AI all of my content. This is the story I want to tell. And I have 90 minutes to do this. And these are senior executives. And I was able to put a lot of information in there. Could you please give me an opening icebreaker? And I want to include, I put all my content in, and they put it into an order for me that would have taken me a day or and that way I could focus on refining my content and not fidgeting around with how long do I spend talking about this versus the next section. And it was super helpful. And you know what it does? It gives you a chance to say yes to more opportunities. Because when someone calls us and says, can you do this? If you don't do it on the regular, you might think, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I have time to do that. But if you know you have that AI tool, then you know you can be more efficient and then get into the work that you know you can do.
Oh, absolutely. And, just to touch on one thing you said there about LinkedIn as well. Yeah, LinkedIn is a great place for business owners to be right now. But I think the approach that you're taking is right in way of stay on one platform, master one platform. There's a wealth of opportunity, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram, whether it's X, formerly Twitter, of course. Wealth of opportunity. Become a master of one, of communicating and connecting on that platform, and there's plenty of opportunity there.
Yeah.
So, Tracy,
David, may I offer something else?
please, yeah.
I have a technique that I call 10 seconds of you. How can you introduce yourself in less than 10 seconds, in under 10 seconds, with a hook that makes people want to know more? And I believe that is an essential technique that you can use when you're networking, when you're at a conference, when you're at a wedding reception, when you're waiting in line at the airport. It doesn't matter. But people say, oh, it's kind of complicated. Well, who's ever going to listen to that? Be very clear about what you do and how you do it in under 10 seconds. For instance, I just came up with this. I just wrote it down on my sticky note. This is what I'm starting to say now. I teach people what technology can't, how to communicate and carry yourself with confidence. That gets people's attention.
Yeah, attention and curiosity as well,
But it
right?
takes a long time. So refine, refine, refine.
Yes, yes. So, Tracy, you've embraced AI as a tool to enhance your efficiency, using it to, tighten video scripts, refine your messaging, and structure presentations, while ensuring that core content and the stories remain authentic to you.
Mhm.
How do you, as an expert in clear and impactful communication, leverage AI to make your message more precise and engaging without diluting your unique voice or the human element?
Well, number one, I have the paid version. I know it's another expense. I think about that. All the little expenses that you have that add up when you're an entrepreneur. It's not just the big ones like the attorney and the finance person, but it's, paying for Google. It's paying for, like, I can take up to 500 people on my Zoom account. Well, that's an expense every month. But I do feel like having the paid version gives me a chance to keep it more private because it is my content, and it now knows me. It now knows the content of the Confidence Project, and therefore I don't have to start at ground zero. I can say, I'm speaking to, mid-level managers today on ABC topic. Please give me a title for this program, or please help me organize this, including all the different areas. So that's really been great, that the fact that it knows me and understands my content and my sensibilities. It's interesting. I always say, please give me a title idea. I always say please and thank you because I want AI to understand that I'm a person who is, polite and dignified and a good communicator. And therefore, I think that gives it a better sense of who I am and how they can spit out what I'm looking for. And I do a lot of editing. I do a lot of editing. It's for me, it's an outline tool, and then I really make it my own. Make this more conversational. Make this more for executives. Tighten this up for me. Those are my
I
commands.
really love how you work in even the most subtle and fundamental things that you would look for with a human in communication, right? The please and the thank yous to show who it is that you are, right? I love how it is you're working in with that with AI and thinking about it as well, right?
Yeah.
Because it is an highly intelligent program or software, large
Yeah.
language model that learns, right? And it'll learn and pick up on these subtleties eventually.
Yeah.
So, Tracy, from your perspective as an expert in human communication, what are your primary concerns about AI's broader impact on interpersonal communication, especially for the younger generation?
I think that people will be less hesitant to trust who they are. I believe we need to think deeply about our values, our personal goals, how we treat people, what we want out of life, both personal and professional. And I think if we rely too much on AI, we lose sight of who we are. It's interesting when I'll make a command, have a command on AI, please take all the jargon out, is often what I'll say. Please remove the jargon. And there's always a preface that they offer before they give you the change without the jargon, and it'll be good insight, Tracy. That's smart to lose all jargon. It makes people feel as if you're not being personal. And you can get caught up in thinking, oh, they think I'm smart. They think I'm good to take out the jargon. So we need to be careful of constantly finding out, reinforcing who we are. And that only comes from human beings. That only comes from people who care about you. I always say it's trite, but it's true. You are known by the company you keep. Surround yourself with people who root for your rise. That's who you want to be with. And that won't come from a machine. It comes from, and it may not come from people in your family. You may not have a family that roots for your rise, but you can find those people in your world and know that you are worthy of being around people who want you to do well, who support you, who will be honest with you, who won't have to put you down to make a point. Everybody has those people they can find, whether it's a teacher, somebody in athletics, somebody in the arts, who's guiding you to play the trombone. There are people there, look for them. And this sounds woo-woo, put it out in the universe. Put it out in the universe. I'm looking for someone who can help me see the potential of what I can do for my business. Our brains believe what we tell them. Our brains believe what we say. So if we say over and over again, I'm going to find a person who's going to root for my rise. I'm going to find a person who's going to help me build this part of my business. I'm going to find a person who's going to connect me with someone else who could be a client. Then your brain will make that happen. I firmly believe that.
I love that. Tracy, your insights into the power of communication and the learnable nature of confidence are truly empowering. To conclude, based on your philosophy that confidence can be learned and your mission to help people present themselves in the best possible way, what is the single most important piece of advice that you'd offer to our audience who are striving to communicate with greater impact, trust, and influence in their personal and professional lives?
Well, David, I was thinking about this and I put it in my phone, so forgive me if I'm looking at myself. But this is what I would say. Be generous. Be generous. I have some pro bono clients who I just love and want them to do well. Be generous with your advice. Be generous with your time. You don't have to be giving your soul away all day long, but be generous. I would say be frugal. Know your numbers. Know your numbers. I mean, last year, year 11 of the Confidence Project, I had a lot of work in the pipeline, but I didn't have anybody sign on the dotted line for 2 months. And I thought, I was so mad. I thought, how can this be? Well, some months are better than others. Now, after that, in January, I got the biggest client I've ever gotten. But during those dark times in November and December of last year, I'm thinking, I couldn't pay myself. I could not pay myself. So what I learned from that was that I need to know my numbers. Mary's my associate, and she takes care of the numbers tracking tool. She does all the invoices and so forth. I need to know what those numbers are so that I know what I can and can't do. So be frugal. The other part of that is that I think it's important to save for retirement. You know, you're young and you think, oh, I'll work for a long time. Retirement, or the ability to retire, comes very fast. And before you know it, you think, do I have enough money to live for the rest of my life? People are living longer now. Alleluia. Good. Bring it on if you're healthy. But can you afford it? I would say save money every single month. In fact, you know, I hadn't really started a retirement fund until I started the Confidence Project. And now I'm committed to putting money in that. I also wanted to be a good role model for my daughters. You know, you can't have a business and not have a retirement fund. So be frugal. And then I would say be thankful. Be thankful for the clients you have. Sometimes I have my own stationery. You can get it anywhere. And it has the Confidence Project at the top. And I'll send a letter to somebody. Thank you for being such a loyal supporter, advocate, client of the Confidence Project. 6, sticking that in the mail. People love that. What do you get in the mail? You get bills and political campaign brochures. That would be my suggestion. I think if you live within your means, or below your means if you can, if you surround yourself with people who are rooting for your rise, if you save for retirement, and if you're thankful, you can build a good business. And be patient. It takes time. What did somebody say? After 10 years, she was an overnight success.
The truth of it right there. Tracy, thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing your insights and your advice with the audience today. For anyone listening who might like to find you online to learn more about the Confidence Project or potentially even seek out a collaboration, what would be the best way to find you?
Yeah, they can go to our website, which is confidenceproject.com. They can email me at tracy@confidenceproject.com. And I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Thanks again for joining us on the Growth Shift today.
My pleasure.
And that's a wrap on another episode of The Growth Shift. If this conversation sparked something for you, whether it's a new perspective on failure, a strategy you want to try, or just the reminder that every setback can become a setup for something bigger, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid change. They're the ones who shift strategically through it. If you're ready to build the systems that help you grow without the chaos, head over to valentix.io. We help businesses like yours scale smarter, not harder. I'm David Zylstra, and I'll see you in the next shift.